Hi everybody, my name is Chef Ian Vair, coming to you from the studios of PEG TV right here in Rutland, Vermont, and you're watching The Green Mountain Chef. Today's episode, we are going to be making an herb and cream cheese stuffed chicken breast topped with a lemon and wine butter sauce, along with a lovely rice pilaf, finished up with some sauteed zucchini, squash, parmesan with oyster mushrooms. Stay tuned. Okay, what's going to take the longest here, folks? I think we should start with our stuffed chicken breast. So our stuffing is going to begin with some cream cheese, and I'm going to be making a recipe for 2 today. All right, this cream cheese has been out at room temperature for about 30 minutes, just to soften up a little bit. And what I'm doing here is just kind of pushing it down in really any kind of a bowl, whether it be metal or porcelain or plastic. I have a stainless steel bowl here. So softened cream cheese with a pinch of black pepper. Nice to give it a little spice. I prefer kosher salt. Another pinch of kosher salt. Let's get all this mixed in nicely. Don't be afraid to taste your stuffing as you're making it, folks. There's nothing volatile in this, so if you are not sure exactly how much a pinch is, start small. Give it a taste. And see what you think. Okay, I'm happy with that. We're going to go to some fresh basil that I was able to source at the local Vermont Farmers Market, which runs Saturdays from 9 to 2, right here in Rutland. All right, some beautiful fresh basil. Looks like I have about 6 or 7 large leaves, and I'm just going to line them up, give them a nice slice long ways, and then back over, sort of give it almost like a dice. You could say a chop. Okay. This fresh basil is going to go into our softened cream cheese with the salt and pepper. Now, folks, if you don't have fresh basil, not the end of the world. If you have dried basil at home, feel free to incorporate that instead. As a chef, I do prefer fresh herbs. Okay, nicely mixed here. Yum. Now, if I wasn't making a lemon and wine butter sauce, I would likely incorporate a small quantity of lemon juice into this stuffing. Fabulous. All right, chicken. I decided to opt against breaking down a whole chicken from the market today, so I broke down just the breast. And what I have here is a chicken breast with still the bone on, and I'm going to take off the skin. And I have a separate cutting board and knife for the chicken. Remember, everyone, chicken is quite volatile. Salmonella does not make us feel very good at all. So I'm using a separate knife on camera here. I'm using a separate cutting board, and I'm going to take the chicken, and you can see the bone underneath. Can we see, everyone? Okay, here's the center of it right here, and I'm going to go from the side, keeping my hand pretty flat, keeping that knife flat, all right? Go nice and slow, folks, keeping it as safe as possible. We just want the breast. You can feel the bone in here. All right. We're going to save this for another dish, probably dinner for me later. Okay, so we have a nice boneless, skinless chicken breast. Now, we need to butterfly this. Now, what does that mean? It means that we need to cut the chicken breast most of the way through so that it opens up, almost like a butterfly. Okay? And what I do with this is plump it up a bit, keeping the knife as flat as possible and my hand as flat as possible. And before I cut, I want to show you, I'm going to come in about 90% of the way, okay? I'm going to cut in, not all the way through. There we go. And she opens right up. Look at this. A nice pocket in there. Lovely. All right, I don't need that tainted knife any longer. I have my stuffing. Now, as I look at this, recall this is a recipe for 2. I have about 5 ounces of cream cheese in here. I only need about half of this because for the show I only need to cook 1 breast. So I'm going to use half of this stuffing right into the center of the breast. And what's going to happen, it's simply going to curl over on itself. Okay? It's a nice pocket inside of there. All right? Sometimes a chef will flour this and then put it into an egg wash and roll it into some breadcrumbs. I'm not going to do that today. And what I have to go into the oven, which is at 350 degrees, just another saute pan. Nothing super fancy. 350 degree oven. That pan was very, very lightly oiled. Now I want to wash my hands with soap and warm water. Remember, we discussed salmonella. With food, folks, the #1 source of all food poisoning is cross-contamination. So it's very important to use clean knives, clean cutting boards, to wash our hands, and then we'll continue on. So, our herb and cream cheese stuffed chicken breast is in the oven at 350 degrees. Now, what's next? A really nice sauce. This is a sauce that I learned in culinary school. This is a sauce that I enjoyed making in several different restaurants, Italian restaurants. Generally, it was with Italian chefs that I learned this from, but also with French chefs. And I am culinary French trained. This is a sauce that we did do in school. So what is going to happen here is I'm going to work with an onion that I was able to source at the local farmer's market. Thank you, everyone. They're always very nice about donating a few ingredients for the show here. Now, I've discussed this before, but remember, when working with an onion, and this is a yellow onion, the best way, the most efficient way to break it down is to leave the root side intact. To cut about 10% off the top side. Right off. Now, not today, but most days I would save my onion tops and my skins for a stock, but not today. So we're going to cut the top off. I only need about half. We're going to take this half, peel the skin off the outside. Not going to save this today. Also, a good tactic to not cry on camera is to not breathe through my nose and to breathe through my mouth. So those of you who have issues with onions at home, remember that little trick. Not through the nose, breathe in and out through the mouth. Now what I'm going to do, so make sure we can see this. All right, we've cut it in half, we've cut the top side. I'm going to cut most of the way through, keeping the knife very level. Can we see that? Can we see, everyone, how we have this here? Okay, most of the way through. Then we're going to come back down several slices, most of the way through. And then I'm going to come back over to create a very nice dice. There's a little bit left on top, and I'm just going to give that a few whacks with the knife to get a little bit more yield. All right. I'll turn my pan on. I only need it on low. I'm only sweating these onions and the garlic that I'm about to demo. So we don't want to heavily cook them. We just want to cook some of that bite out of them. All right, so they're very nice to the palate. So thank you again to those nice farmers at the Vermont Farmers Market. for the garlic and the onion. And it looks like I'm only going to need about 2 cloves. This is 1 garlic bulb. And I'm going to use a couple cloves here, make that 3. So I break these off, and the way that I do it, there's several ways to do it. You can push down on the garlic, and that loosens it up. You can twist it a little bit. All right? It can be a little challenging, but it comes off nicely. It's important to sort of smash it. Some people like to get a knife on it and smash it a little bit. That loosens the skin up as well. I usually just sort of lean down on it and then give it a little twist. All right. So for the garlic, slice right across. Remember, always keep your fingers tucked. Always keep your thumb back. Safe. Safety. My knife is extremely sharp. Another thing that we learned in culinary school, that the most dangerous knife in the kitchen is the dullest. So believe it or not, by using safe knife skills and using a sharp knife, it's almost impossible to cut yourself. So I've sliced that across. I'm going to go across a couple more times. Okay. Our pan is nice and hot at this point. I like to use avocado oil. It's a good, healthy oil. It has a high smoke point. This is an oil that I use at home daily. All right. Our onions take a little longer to cook. Turn my heat up just a skosh here. And you should hear a sizzle as it goes into the pan. I'm going to let these cook maybe for 30 seconds to a minute. Then we're going to add our garlic. And meanwhile, I need some lemon juice. You can find lemon juice in many forms. Sometimes you can just get it already in a bottle at the grocery store. I like to use fresh lemon juice. And for this recipe, let's see here. I think we're only going to need about 1/4. Let's see what our yield is going to be on the juice. Now remember, some seeds are going to come out in this lemon. So be wary. And yes, looks like only about 1/4 of a lemon is going to be fine. We don't want it to be too bitter. All right. Onions are looking nice. Remember, avocado oil. Another great oil to use would be canola oil. Some people like to use extra virgin olive oil. They say that's one of the best, and it's true. But the difference between these oils with extra virgin olive oil and with avocado oil is the smoke point. That means the temperature in which it starts to smoke and that you need to get your product into the pan. We have about 200 degrees higher on the avocado oil, so we can get it really nice and hot and we can get the product cooked more quickly, okay, without breaking down the oil. For this chef, I like to use extra virgin olive oil, believe it or not, in my smoothies and in my salad dressings. I also eat extra virgin olive oil on a daily basis. Very, very good for you. Okay, looks like our onions are just starting to barely caramelize, just barely. Now, I'm going to cook my garlic, but I really don't want to caramelize the garlic. I like to do what's called sweat. And with that, you're maybe going to cook it for about 20, 30 seconds. And you are really only cooking that bitterness out of your garlic, that bite that you find in the garlic. It's that spiciness. So it's nice. For many sauces and many recipes, I like to sweat my garlic. Okay. Looks like about 15 seconds there. Now, we have about 1/4 of a lemon. It came out to about a tablespoon, just so you know, if those of you who might be using lemon juice out of a bottle, careful not to put those seeds in there. Now I have some nice white wine, and for cooking wine, I like to get the wine that's on sale. And this is not a real strong wine kind of sauce. We're actually going to we want to cook all the alcohol off of this, and it's really just for flavor. Okay, so far we have a half of a small onion. We have about 3 cloves of garlic. Okay, we have a quarter of a lemon that we've juiced. And let's put in about a half a cup, approximately, of our white wine. And I'm using a Chardonnay today. Now, this is going to cook on about medium because we want to reduce it. We want to cook the alcohol out of it. And before we add our butter in, we need to let it cool slightly, because if we add our butter in too soon, it's going to break. It's going to separate, and it's not going to make a nice emulsified butter sauce. All right. So let me get this on the back burner here. Very good. Okay. Now, we're going to make a basmati rice pilaf with wild mushrooms. You know what's fun about being on camera and having all these recipes is I have all these wonderful ingredients, and sometimes I want to put mushrooms in everything, but the truth is I'm actually going to reserve these mushrooms for the next recipe. So this rice pilaf is going to be pretty traditional. Now, what is a rice pilaf? It's a cooking method. It's not what kind of rice you're using. It actually means that we're tossing the rice in fat first. Whether you're using an oil, like an avocado oil today, maybe we'd like to use a butter or some other oil, maybe a sesame oil, something like that. So I'm heating up the pan. I'm going to use the other half of our onion. Sorry folks, I teased you a little bit with the mushrooms going into this, but I need to be careful how many mushrooms I use on the show here. And the mushrooms that I use are from the wild, and I can't always have as many mushrooms as I would like because I'm out foraging in the wild for these wonderful ingredients. So I'm going through that same process with the onion, cut most of the way through, come back over top, back down again, a little bit left. Let's get some of that. All right. We could use butter here, and if we're big fans of butter, feel free. I'm going to stick with the avocado oil. Very, very healthy oil. Probably about a tablespoon. High smoke point. All right, we're getting some nice little squigglies down there in the pan. It's just about to start smoking, and I'm going to get these onions right in here. Woo. We're on high. I want to turn it down to about medium. I don't want to burn the onions. And let's work with a little bit of garlic. Those of you who possibly are just tuning in, we're working on a rice pilaf right now, which is a French cooking method. We're tossing the rice in fat. Currently, I have the fat, which is avocado oil, cooking some onions. I'm about to sweat some garlic in with it. Before that garlic goes in there, I decided to put a little bit of carrots in with this. I think I want a little color. And I'm just going to use about half of a carrot, cut down. Nice and thin. It's going to cook at about the same rate as the onion. All right, yummy. All right, let's take a look. Wow, our wine and onions are looking really nice. I'm going to turn this back burner off. Folks, that only took about 5 minutes to reduce that wine. We only used about a half of a cup, about a tablespoon of lemon juice. So that's going to be for our sauce, our butter sauce at the end. All right, those are looking nice. Beautiful. Here's our garlic. Remember, safety, folks. Nice sharp knife, but safety with our fingers. Okay, keep these fingers nice and flat, tucked, keep that thumb back. Chef Ian Vair here. You're watching the Green Mountain Chef. The products that I like to use, much of which are sourced at the local Vermont Farmers Market, supporting local, healthy, bringing in some wild mushrooms. I am a culinary French trained chef. This is a lot of fun. You know, I'll tell you what, this is episode 13, I believe, and a year ago when I started making these, I was really nervous. But these days, it's a lot of fun. And I just really would like to thank everyone at PEG TV for helping me to produce these episodes, these shows of Green Mountain Chef, bringing local, sustainable, healthy, wild food. All right, I'm gonna sweat our garlic. And by the look of this, I feel like we need just a skosh more oil. I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil. Remember, the peel-off method is coating your rice in fat, and we're using basmati rice today. These vegetables look great. Let's see. 2-to-1 is our ratio, so that means 1 part rice, and I'm using a half a cup. Toss down in with the fat and the vegetables that I'm cooking, using avocado oil here, garlic and onion and carrots. Nice and coated. You know, when we first got in here, I made a batch of rice pilaf, and one of the producers and cameramen said to me, "Wow, it smells like popcorn in here." And the truth is we're kind of toasting this rice just a bit. It's really nice. So we have a half a cup of our basmati rice, tossed in our avocado oil and our vegetables. Let's finish it off with some water. This is going to cook for about 25 minutes. Now, we don't have that much time, but if we did, we would bring it to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, get a lid on top, and after that time period, we're going to let it rest for about another 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, this is going to go on low. Now is our zucchini and squash and oyster mushroom parmesan. And what we're going to do here is have our pan on high heat. Thank you to the farmers from the Vermont Farmers Market this Saturday for donating some zucchini and squash. And this is a simple recipe, folks. I'm just going to cut the top and the bottom off the zucchini and the squash. Okay. Cut in half. Line it up here. We're doing a recipe for about 2 today. Now, this is a great recipe because it's easy to double or quadruple. You could actually, turn this into as many recipes as, much quantity as you'd like. So if you'd like to make this recipe for a large number of people, this is a good one to do. Okay, our pan is nice and hot. So our chicken is cooking. Very nice. The stuffed chicken is on 350 degrees. Rice pilaf is working. Our lemon and wine butter reduction is basically finished. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to get my zucchini and squash in the pan. All right. Let's keep this real simple. We could very easily cook up some onions and garlic to add into this, basically when the zucchini and squash is pretty much finished. We're not going to do that today. We're going to keep it real simple. As this is cooking, and I have it on pretty high heat at the moment. We have about 5 minutes left of the show. We want to make sure things are sped up here. I challenged myself today to do 4 different recipes, and we're going to make it happen. All right. A couple pinches of salt. Same deal with the black pepper. That's going to cook for a few minutes. Once they're nearly finished, we're going to work with some mushrooms. And this is definitely not a requirement for the recipe, but I was out foraging yesterday, and I do have a wild mushroom foraging business called Green Mountain Fungi, and I said, hey, what the heck? We found some wild oyster mushrooms. Let's bring them into the show. And the oyster mushrooms, are lovely. They have a nice anise smell. You know, these are mushrooms that you can actually source from a mushroom farmer, Champlain Valley, at the Vermont Farmers Market. And I do not recommend people just going into the wild and grabbing mushrooms. But for myself, I'm a wild mushroom expert, and it's just a lot of fun to bring it onto the show. I work out of a National Audubon Society field guide to North American mushrooms. I teach workshops. I thoroughly enjoy educating folks on how to source food in the wild. Okay, lovely. Getting some nice brownage there. Our reduction, we have a little heat on. I'm going to add about 2 ounces of butter, and it's key that we only add about a small slice at a time. And once constantly agitating that. Okay? We can't add it all at the same time, and it can't be too hot or too cold. It's got to be warm. We've got to be able to touch this, and if that burns you, it's too hot. If it's not at least quite warm, it's not hot enough. So we get one of those incorporated. And this is salted butter. The truth is I don't really need to do much to this other than add the butter at the appropriate rate. And the more you add, the more you add. Which means we start with 1, and then we go into 2. And then we'll go into 3 and 4. And we can go a little faster. All right, this looks great. Just a bit more butter, and it looks like we only needed about an ounce. Very, very little. So this is nearly finished. These oyster mushrooms, it's time to add into the zucchini and squash. And I'm just going to slice them up. It's very important to cook your mushrooms, particularly wild mushrooms. And this just adds a nice little dynamic flavor to this dish. Salt and pepper looks good. We've got our mushrooms in. Our sauce is beautiful. Our chicken, which only went in a few minutes ago, I'm pulling some television magic because we have another one that's ready. So I'm going to give that a little, and it's done. That's fun doing that on camera. Well, this guy went for about 40 minutes. We have a lovely rice pilaf. Yummy. Now this cheese could be melted in the oven. I'm going to melt it right in the pan. Maybe an ounce of Parmesan, maybe. With our cooked oyster mushrooms. Yum. Yum. All right, our cream cheese and herb stuffed chicken breast with our lemon and wine butter sauce. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. Chef Ian Vair. Here at PEG TV, you're watching The Green Mountain Chef. Keep joining us. It's a lot of fun. Thank you.